Gopi Jana Pallava Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Pallava Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Pallava Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Pallava Yashoda Nandana Raja Jana Rajana Yamuna Tira Vanatari Yamuna Tira Vanatari Jaya Radha Radha Krishna Vihari A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Mr. Bhavan Sabhadada Sto Jayasata C.C. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki Jai. Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 18, Prithu Maharaja milks the earth planet. Text 21. Yaksha Rakshamsi Bhutani Pishacha Pishatashana Bhutesha Vatsa Dudu Kapale Shatajasavam Yaksha Rakshamsi Bhutani Pisacha Pishatashana Bhutesha Vatsadudu Kapale Shatajasavam Yaksha Rakshamsi Bhutani Pisacha Pishatashana Bhutesha Vatsadudu Kapale Shatajasavam
Pishitasana Bhutesha Vatsadudu Kapale Kshatrajasavam
Vaishnavis.
Yaksharaksham Bhutani Vishacha Pishitasana Bhutesha Vatsadudu Kapale Shatajasavam Yaksharaksham Bhutani Vishacha Pishitasana Bhutesha Vatsadudu Kapale Shatajasavam Yaksharaksham Bhutani Vishacha Pishitasana Bhutesha Vatsadudu Kapale Shatajasavam
Yaksha, the Yakshas, the descendants of Kuvera. Rakshamsi, the Rakshasas, meat eaters. Bhutani, ghosts. Pisacha, witches. Pishita Ashana, who are all habituated to eating flesh. Bhutesha, Lord Shiva's incarnation, Rudra. Vatsa, whose calf. Duduhu, milked out. Kapale, in a pot of skulls. Shataja, blood. Asavam, a fermented beverage. Translation. Then the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts and witches, who are habituated to eating flesh, transform Lord Shiva's incarnation Rudra, Bhutanatha, into a calf, and milked out beverages made of blood and put them in a pot made of skulls. Purport. There are some types of living entities in the form of human beings whose living conditions and eatables are most abominable. Generally, they eat flesh and fermented blood, which is mentioned in this verse as Shatajasavam. The leaders of such degraded men, known as yakshas, rakshasas, bhutas, and pisachas, are all in the mode of ignorance. They have been placed under the control of Rudra. Rudra is the incarnation of Lord Shiva and is in charge of the mode of ignorance in material nature. Another name of Lord Shiva is Bhutanatha, meaning master of ghosts. Rudra was born from between Brahma's eyes when Brahma was very angry at the 4 Kumars. Translation again. Then the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts and witches, who are habituated to eating flesh, transform Lord Shiva's incarnation Rudra, Bhutanatha, into a calf, and milked out beverages made of blood and put them in a pot made of skulls. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam contains many mystical aspects. Mystical meaning beyond the conception and ability of human beings today. So generally, what is beyond your capability, beyond even your perception, you call mystical. But there's an explanation for everything in the cosmos. We may not have access in our ordinary knowledge acquiring processes. We may not have access to the explanation for everything, but that explanation is there. So Srimad Bhagavatam contains so much that is beyond the range of our senses, especially beyond the range of senses in today's pretense at civilization. You read that there are rakshasas and they are meat eaters, habituated to eating flesh. Yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts, and witches, habituated to eating flesh. Not only flesh, but fermented blood. So, there are all types of creatures, all types of living entities. We may see them with our ordinary perception, or we may not. Some people can perceive these entities. Others have no idea of their existence, but these entities give trouble, and people don't know what is the cause of that trouble. So Srimad Bhagavatam contains so much factual information that is outside of our paradigm, outside of our thought processes. Sometimes what you're reading in Bhagavatam is allegorical and symbolic. Just like at the start of this chapter, Srila Prabhupada says, you can take this chapter allegorically, symbolically, in terms of earth becoming a cow, and all these different entities, living entities, are transforming into a calf in order that the cow will supply milk, in order that the earth planet will supply so many resources. So Prabhupada says you can take it as symbolic, but the main point is that the earth is supplying all necessities if the human beings are in proper consciousness. That is the main point. Once a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, is Srimad Bhagavatam mostly factual or symbolic, the knowledge it's relaying, allegorical? And Srila Prabhupada replied that it's mostly factual, with some symbolism. So the devotee said, well, how do you tell the difference between what is factual and what is symbolism? So Srila Prabhupada replied that you have to be a liberated soul in order to tell. So humbly we accept that there's so much in Bhagavatam that is outside the range of Kali Yuga sense perception. Of course, one of the symptoms of Kali Yuga is that we think we know so much. We know so much except what we are and what will be our destination in the next life. We don't know that. We don't care. What's the whole point of life? To make money and have a secure status and enjoy. As for what comes after this life, who cares? This is Dharma in the Kali Yuga. You don't know where you've come from. You don't know why you're living, except for making money and getting security. That's all. And then have a family and try to the same things for your family. That's it. This kind of thinking is a great tragedy. So naturally, when such limited living entities, such human beings who are squandering their human form of life, when they hear something like chapter 18 of the fourth canto, Prithu Maharaja milks the earth planet, they think, oh, how primitive, how mythological. But as I always point out, to the great sages of Vedic civilization, just like the purport mentions the four Kumars, and earlier in the chapter, you hear from so many highly advanced living entities. If they hear about what we experience today in Kali Yuga, what would they say? Unbelievable, mythological. You gotta be kidding me. People actually live like that? But we take it as normal, right? Yes, so some people are like that. That's the way it is. The main thing is, how's your job security? Is your job being threatened by AI? That's the main concern. As for what I am I the body? Am I the mind? Am I something else? What will happen to me after death? Who has time to worry about all that? Why should you think what is the meaning of life? Who has time to think of life's meaning? If you have so much time to think about what's the meaning of life, you need to get a job, be productive, have some children, do something. So Srimad Bhagavatam, the literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, contains information that sometimes can't be verified by our mundane sense perception. So much we don't know. I was speaking at a program yesterday, and I explained that scientists who study the oceans of planet Earth, they're known as oceanographers. They say that science knows more about the moon than it does about the depths of the oceans on this very planet. So there's so much beyond our understanding. Yet we proudly think that Srimad Bhagavatam is mythological. When our lives are so scattered and so distorted that an intelligent being would consider our life as mythological. So what is the essential point of this chapter? It's demonstrating that there are different types of living entities with different needs. According to how you associate with material nature, you develop different needs and have different persons as your associates. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Karanam Guna Sangasya Sarasad Yoni Janmasu. According to how you associate with the modes of nature, you think, well, I'm just enjoying, I'm just working, I'm just being with family, but you are associated with material nature. And in that way you are shaped and molded by Triguna Mai, the three modes of material nature. But at this stage of Kali Yuga, it's two modes of material nature, passion and ignorance, no goodness. Even ghosts, witches, hobgoblins, they get their needs, their necessities. As this verse tells you, they exist and their needs for sustenance are fulfilled. All types of living entities, according to their needs, even though their needs are different, they're fulfilled. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. The Upanishads explain that of all the conscious beings, there's one supreme conscious being. Out of all the eternal beings, there's one supreme eternal. So what's the first difference between that one, ik, and the many, the parts and parcels, the living entities? The difference is, number one, that one is maintaining all the others. That's just one difference. But if we can't understand that difference, that the one is maintaining everyone else, all other living entities, then we get nowhere in our attempts to understand existence, the meaning of life. So the earth is dialoguing with Prithu Maharaj, who's a Shaktivesh avatar. He's an empowered living entity, a living entity empowered with special Shakti to demonstrate how to be an ideal head of state. He's empowered by the Supreme Lord to display that activity and quality of a genuine leader of society. Just like in the purport, the four Kumaras are mentioned, they're empowered, they're Shaktivesh, to distribute knowledge, to teach and distribute knowledge. They're living entities, but divinely empowered with special Shakti, special energy. So the earth has been accused by Prithu Maharaj of not providing sustenance for all the living entities. And the earth planet is defending herself. So we may think there's a personified earth planet. Yes, because ultimately consciousness is fundamental in the universe. We have been schooled to think that everything is material and consciousness is added in as a material ingredient. But the Shastra is teaching us that consciousness, the symptom of the spirit soul, is not part of the material scheme. There's the body, and then there's the spirit soul. And the consciousness is the energy of the spirit soul. That you are conscious should let you know that you are a spirit soul, because you cannot trace your consciousness to anything biological. So why should we find it to be so astonishing that there's a personified earth planet, or that all the functions of nature have consciousness behind them? So what Bhagavatam is presenting, what the Vedic worldview is, that there's a hierarchy of consciousness. At the top of the hierarchy of consciousness is the Supreme Conscious Being, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. The Supreme Consciousness is at the top of the pyramid, you could say. And then underneath are beings of lesser consciousness, like the Devatas, the demigods. And then under them, the human beings. So behind all the functions of nature is consciousness. Not that matter just arranges itself and activates itself and does things on its own without consciousness. So Srimad Bhagavatam is exalting, it's glorifying the reality, the fundamental existence of consciousness. It is consciousness behind matter, not that consciousness is matter. The notion that matter is the ultimate reality has destroyed human society. If you would just consider that you're material, that's it, then why not just be a materialist? But if you understand that you have conscious needs. Your consciousness, your spirit soul has needs. Then you start to consider, what is the prime necessity? Is it the needs of the body or the needs of the spirit soul? So yes, as long as you have a body, you have to maintain it. And the earth is willing to provide all the resources you need to maintain your body if you use your body for what it's meant for. The human body is especially the human body is meant for self-realization, God realization. If you don't use the human body for that purpose, why should the earth maintain you? This is the point of chapter 17 and chapter 18. Prithu Maharaj is wondering, where is the food? As the head of state, it's his responsibility to make sure that all the citizens are well fed and protected. So he's noticing the food has disappeared. Where does the food come from? Coles, right? Or Woolworths. That's where food comes from. This is Kali Yuga thinking. We're so trapped in distorted consciousness that we can't even understand where food comes from. What to speak of? What is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What is Srimad Bhagavatam? We can't even understand where food comes from. Where does air come from? The aircon. Where does water come from? The tap. Where does garbage go? In the rubbish bin. That's it. We're so cut off from reality. Even we're cut off from material reality. And here we are complaining about what seems to be exotic in the spiritual reality, and we're so cut off from the material reality. It's actually a great compliment to call people today materialists. To call someone a materialist implies that they have ability to live material life expertly. But look, you see human beings today with their material life, they're destroying the planet and destroying themselves. I may have mentioned before in a previous visit, one survey in Australia was taken by the government asking people to evaluate their own mental health condition. And 40% of Australians said that their mental health is very poor. And what were the two main reasons they gave for having poor mental health? Number one, work stress. Number two, money problems. So we think we're so advanced, we think we've made so much progress, but what you see is more and more is that human beings are destroying themselves, destroying their minds, and destroying their bodies, and destroying the environment. And yet we think there has been great advancement. You may notice that for every technological advancement, a problem comes about. So there's the advancement, quote unquote, and then accompanying it is a new set of problems. You're driving, so many of you drive to the Radha Gopinath Mandir. It's convenient to drive, but at any moment, boom, there can be a crash. We just hope and pray while we're driving or riding in the car. The crash won't happen to us. So yes, there's a step forward in terms of convenience, and at the same time, you incur new dangers that didn't exist before. So the result is In spite of such so-called progress, your anxiety and stress loads increase. Just like AI. Oh, it's a wonder. But then so many people are in anxiety, stressed out. Will I lose my job? So the earth withholds natural resources from sinful persons who do not live according to the purpose of the human form of life. This is real ecological science, understanding the reaction of conscious entities more powerful than human beings. Yet human beings think they're so great. Who could be more powerful than us? What does this talk about? Indra, Varuna, Brahma. This is mythology. How could there be such powerful beings? We are the ultimate. We human beings are the ultimate. This is the arrogance. And another part of that arrogance is that we manufacture our own ways of happiness and progress. We refuse to consider that the methods for happiness and genuine progress have already been formulated. The Earth Planet explains this to Prithu Maharaj. She says, I am withholding natural resources. I'm withholding food because the human beings are not living properly. Prithu Maharaj was angry because he's the head of state. Where's the food? I have the responsibility to make sure that all my subjects get their necessities. The food has disappeared. So out of anger, he goes searching for the earth personified and threatens to terminate her, threatens to kill her. That's how powerful Prithu Maharaj is. He could threaten the deity of the earth. And she begs for mercy, saying, there's a reason why the natural resources, especially the food, has disappeared. It's because human beings are living according to concoctions. They're ignoring the counsel, the standards given by the liberated personalities. They think they know best. Look at how they live. How could they know best? How could they know better than a liberated soul? But by their constantly manufacturing new ways of life, new standards, new forms of behavior, by their constantly doing that, they're showing their arrogance. They don't want to accept that everything has already been figured out. They want to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. We are human beings. It's up to each human being to find out what is his or her happiness. That is the disease of Western so-called civilization. And now it's affecting Bharat also. The stability of Bharat is based on following standards that have been formulated for thousands of years. But in the Wild West, there's no standard. You're even told, why should you imagine that there's a standardized meaning to life or a standardized code of behavior? Why? There's no meaning in the universe except what you temporarily manufacture. You make your own meaning in this temporary existence and then you die. That's it. The reality is the universe is cold and indifferent. There's no meaning to the universe. All you can do is, in your short life, after birth and before death, make your own light in the darkness. Make your own meaning. That's it. Be courageous. Admit that there's no ultimate meaning. Why should you think there's life after death? You must be a child who's afraid of the dark. Just face it. After death, everything is finished. Your brain is like a computer. When some parts in the computer break down, that's the end of the computer's usefulness. Similarly, you are your brain. When the brain breaks down, finished. No afterlife. Why do you need fairy tales to live by? Be an adult. Stand tall. There's no meaning except what I make. And look how successful your human societies are. As the amount of stress and anxiety and mental problems skyrocket. So even in Bharat, they want to get rid of the ancient traditions and standards. So the earth is telling Prithu Maharaj how everything for how human beings can live has already been figured out by the liberated souls. But humans, they're not following that. Therefore, I'm not going to feed them. We think all the natural resources, the supply of food, the supply of natural resources is dependent on our technological prowess. How expertly are we mining the resources in Australia? It's up to us to figure out. We don't think that someone is controlling the supply. So that's what the earth is telling Prithu. I'm controlling the supply. I'm hiding resources so that sinful human beings cannot access them. Because Prithu Maharaj was angry. Where's the food? Where are the natural resources for supporting the population? He's threatening to kill the earth planet. And she's telling him, just hold on, let's hear the facts. I can't feed these kind of people. So she explains to Prithu Maharaj, if I'm treated properly, like if a cow is treated properly, the cow will give practically unlimited quantities of milk. So if I'm treated properly by civilized human beings who know the purpose of life, then I'll provide so many resources. So the principle is that the cow, when treated nicely, gives big quantities of milk. You know the famous verse from the first canto about Maharaj Yudhishthir's government. Kamam vavarsha parjanya sarva kama dugamahi. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the cows were so happy they would flood the earth with milk. And you know, in Braj, at the time of Krishna's appearance, the Brajbasis were celebrating with milk products, throwing ghee and butter and yogurt and milk at each other, celebrating Krishna's appearance. The ground was muddy with milk products. There was such an abundance. And then when it's time for Nanda Maharaj to go to Mathura to pay his taxes to Kamsa, what did he bring? He brought milk products. You can just imagine trying to pay ATO with milk products. It would put you in an insane asylum. How can meat eaters understand this principle? They just see the cow as meat. They care for so many cats and dogs. Where I'm staying at the abode of Pratapana Prabhu and Jai Sri Devi Dasi, I can look out the window and see in Darlinghurst so many persons with such well-groomed dogs. In 6 o'clock in the morning, they're walking their dog, rendering humble service to the dog. Dog puja. Very important. And the dogs look better than the human beings. They're so well groomed. Their hair, everything. This is the standard of a real human civilization. Recently in New Zealand, there was headline story: sea turtles rescued and safely brought back to the ocean. Some sea turtles were washed up on the beach. And so some people came and rescued the sea turtles that were washed up on the beach, took them to some kind of animal care center and revived the sea turtles, and then brought them back to the beach to put in the ocean and let the sea turtles continue their life in the ocean. Hundreds of people gathered for this. There were tears in their eyes. We have saved some sea turtles. Of course, we approve of mercy to all living entities. But what about the cows? Those same people who gathered in hundreds with tears in their eyes. They were saying it's such an emotional event, the return of the sea turtles to the ocean. Yes, as devotees, we respect all forms of life, and we're happy that the sea turtles were benefited. But those very same people, those hundreds of people who gathered on the beach, they think nothing of slaughtering the cow. So the principle is that Earth told Prithu Maharaj, just like a cow, when treated nicely, gives so much milk to the calf. Similarly, if I am having on my surface of the earth a population that is living according to the standards of the liberated souls, then I give. So she told Prithu, tell all these different types of beings to make a calf, and to that calf I'll give the needs of each particular type of living being. So this verse, you're hearing about the scariest living beings: yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts, and witches, habituated to eating flesh. They devised their own calf, which you could take as a symbol, and from the earth received what they wanted. What did they want? Beverages made of blood, drunk from pots of skulls. Takes all types. So the point is that the earth can supply all necessities for all types of living entities, not just the civilized or uncivilized human beings. So there are various types of living entities in the material world, and all their needs are ultimately provided. All their sustenance is provided by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we want to truly be environmental and ecological, we need to recognize the source of all natural resources. And besides offering gratitude, we should live in a way that's according to the standards given by liberated personalities. This is the accusation of the Earth planet. You're concocting. Everything you need to do and know has already been figured out. But you have concocted a way of civilization that I will not support. I will not feed such people. This is real environmental consciousness. So this is something for us to think about in terms of our use of our own human body. What's the purpose of your human body? Is it just to have investment properties and financial security? That's nice, but it's not the primary need. Yes, it's secondary, tertiary, but what about the primary need? A human being is meant to deal with the primary needs while fulfilling the secondary and tertiary needs. And then the earth will feel satisfied to support such a population. So this is a very powerful point that Prithu Maharaj is demonstrating. He was going to go after the earth planet. What are you doing? You're not supporting the population. He was angry because it's his responsibility as chief executive, the head of state, is what? Not just to call an election. It's his responsibility to make sure everyone is protected and has what they need to live. So he's angry and he's ready to take action against the earth personified, the conscious being that's in charge of the earth planet. There's always consciousness in charge of something. It's not that matter is in charge of something. It's a crazy thought to think matter is in charge. And that matter has come together by random interactions in the universe. Where'd the matter come from? Oh, we don't know. But everything is material. You are material. Why are you wasting your time with spirituality? Just enjoy your temporary body. Teach others to do the same. That's it. There's no meaning to life except what you make it. What you make as the meaning, that's what it is. And everyone can make their own meaning. That notion is considered to be progress. And that notion is destroying human civilization. And people are going, literally they're going crazy because of it. So the earth planet makes a big deal out of this point. Everything has already been figured out. What about the standard ways for happiness, the standard ways of living? What do we need imperfect beings to try and figure things out? So unless we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam about these things, how would we ever know? We'll be thinking, oh, I'm working in IT, I'm working in the financial industry for the banks. How cutting edge, how advanced. And meanwhile, people are losing their minds, not simply losing their jobs, they're losing their mind. So this is very valuable information. And our consciousness, our awareness is heightened by hearing about these things that are beyond the range of our ordinary perception. Bhagavatam is cluing you in, is teaching you. There's a lot going on in this universe that you're not aware of. So we're grateful to have Srimad Bhagavatam because while teaching us about the universe, it's also pulling us toward pure love of Krishna. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya instructed, before you are liberated, read Srimad Bhagavatam. And after you are liberated, go on reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Amala Purana, the spotless Purana. It instills love of Krishna. Gradually building up your understanding through the cantos, and then in the 10th canto, you have the smiling face of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai. Any questions? Yes.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for that wonderful class. Maharaj, we see that in spite of people having some amount of awareness, they are very adamant to change. They're still very habituated to eating meat and exploiting material nature. So what are some practical things that we can do to change their hearts and mind, or is it a wasted effort?
We are servants of Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who ordered, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. Krishna says, surrender to me. Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, Sarva Dhamma Prityaja. You know that verse, yes? Abandon all your conceptions of Dharma, shut down your plan-making factory, and do what I say. That same Krishna comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and says the same thing. Surrender to Krishna. How? Wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. So we follow the orders of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because we want to surrender to Krishna. They're very attached, the people, to meat eating. Yes, there's a rise in non-meat eating, but there's also a rise in meat eating. People need the taste of prasad. Otherwise, many people cannot give up meat unless they get something that they think tastes better. To their senses, the flesh and blood tastes good. Just like to the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts and witches, flesh and blood tastes good. So people are at that, human beings have reached such a low level that they think corpses taste good. Corpses in the guise of McDonald's, KFC, Sizzlers. So this is why prasad distribution is so important. Anything else? Yes.
Just piggybacking on the previous question, how do we figure out if the person has faith or not with the 9 offenses to not instruct the glories of the holy name to a faithless person?
At a public program, for example, like we had last night in Redfern, Newtown, I will not say, you should chant Hare Krishna because Krishna is the same as his name. And by chanting Hare Krishna, you associate with the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. If I said that, that would be broadcasting the glories of the holy name to the unfaithful. Instead, I explain, the mantra meditation is the pinnacle of the yoga system, making for the ultimate connection. Freeing your mind from material consciousness, attaching it to the supreme consciousness. I think you've heard me give an example before. Prabhupada in London talking to a famous musician who came to see him with his girlfriend. And the girlfriend, as was the style back then, of course it's probably still the same, she was wearing a mini skirt. And so she was, seated on the floor before Prabhupada, sitting cross-legged. But when you have a mini skirt on, it's not easy to properly sit cross-legged. So it was time for questions. And she asked Prabhupada, why do you have bare heads? And Prabhupada replied, why do you have bare legs? He said, better to have a cool head and warm legs. So then Prabhupada began explaining something about chanting Hare Krishna in a general way, and was obviously holding back. And so one devotee there thought, let me help Prabhupada in communicating to this famous musician. So the devotee began to explain, you see, what Prabhupada is trying to tell you is that Krishna is the same as his name, and when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna is present on your tongue. Prabhupada, right in front of the VIP, cut the devotee off. Stop! You are offending the holy name by explaining the glories of the holy name to the unfaithful. Right in front of the VIP. So therefore, when we explain about chanting Hare Krishna, we don't say things like that. You'll be conscious of Krishna's pastimes. Hare refers to Radha, the internal potency. We don't say things like that. We talk about Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the consciousness, extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Anything else? Yes.
Thank you very much. You know, in the 10 offenses, offense number 9 is that is an offense to instruct a faithful person about the glory of the holy name.
I missed that part.
He's saying offense number 9 is to instruct the glories of the holy name to the faithful.
Yes.
If that's the case, how do we approach a faithful person to come to Krishna?
You can do that. You can instruct a faithless person to come to Krishna by engaging them in service. Buy this book, come to the temple. You don't have to tell them about the knowledge of Chaitanya Charitamrita. You have read Chaitanya Charitamrita? How Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined, come to the temple and see Sri Gauranga. He said, come to the temple, you'll get knowledge of the self, knowledge of the Supreme Self. You'll understand what is consciousness, and the food is very good. That's how you do it.
And nowadays, a lot of people are fearful of going to temple.
Hmm?
A lot of people are fearful of going to temple.
Yes.
Not comfortable going to temple.
Yes. So here you have devotees like Radha Vinod, yes, doing outreach. I did some programs this past week at other venues. I was one of those who would never consider going to a temple. But I love the books. You love the books also? Very good. I never thought to go to a temple. I thought this is very strange people. But the books, I've never seen any books like this before. So only after I gave donations on the street totaling, in today's financial value, $20,000 US, given on the street to a devotee, only then did I think, maybe I should go to the temple and see where all my money is going to. That's after meeting Sankirtan devotees and giving, in today's equivalents, $20,000, $10,000 twice. I was just 21 years old, maybe just turned 22. So I was very afraid my first visit to the temple. What will I find there? alien beings, people from UFOs. So I remember approaching the temple from the subway station. It was about a 10-minute walk to the temple in New York City. And from one block away, I could hear, so what's that? I could smell the incense 1 block away. Because that was part of the preaching back then. The more incense you light in the temple, the more people will be attracted. So the clouds of incense would be coming out of the windows. So I was so nervous walking up the stairs to the front door of the temple and had no idea what to expect. I had seen them in New York City, these strange persons dressed in strange ways, ladies completely covered up. How uncivilized, I thought. Very primitive. So I walked up to the front steps, because you had to go up the steps, maybe 3 concrete steps to get to the front door. And I said, okay, I'm going to open the door. I'm going to go in. I don't know what's going to be on the other side of the door, but I better see where all my money went to. I opened the door, and there was a greeter at the door, a devotee who had been given the service of greeting guests as they came to the Sunday feast. So as soon as I opened the door, there he was. What did he say? Welcome, brother, you've come to the right place. Come on in. All my anxiety disappeared. So I joined the kirtan in the temple room before the deity, Sri Sri Radha Govinda. And then it was time for the feast. A feast back then meant 13 preparations. 3 sabjis, 2 types of halava, pakoras, sweet rice, kheer. In the early days of ISKCON, we would just live from one Sunday to the next Sunday because of the Sunday feast. So that's what it was like. So, yes, even it's not simply amongst the Australians or the British or the Americans who have an attitude about temples. Now even the Bharatiyas, the young ones are saying, the temple, that's for my grandmother. I don't want this Hindi-bindi stuff. Yes, it's becoming like that. So therefore we devise new ways how to give people Krishna. We change the packaging, but the content is the same. So you can help. You were not thinking, oh, let me go to a temple. You were looking for knowledge, the best knowledge. Anything else?
I think it's an interesting point you mentioned that to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam has to be a liberated soul. We should study.
I said Prabhupada's response was to know what is fact and what is allegory or symbolism. You have to be a liberated soul. He said most of Bhagavatam content is factual. There is some symbolism, some allegory there. But to know what the difference is, you have to be a liberated soul. So be very careful in saying, oh, this is not real, or this is symbolism, or this is allegory. Be very careful.
So some subject matters are like very esoteric to understand sometimes.
Some subject matters. There's a lot in Srimad Bhagavatam that's very difficult to understand in mundane consciousness. In mundane consciousness, you don't even know who you are. You don't know what is the meaning of life. What is the proper way to understand Srimad Bhagavatam? Through devotional service. Vasudeva Kata Ruchi San Mahat Sevaya Vibra. By rendering service to the devotee, you develop a ruchi, a taste for talks about Krishna. Vasudeva Kata. Therefore, it's very important to engage everyone in devotional service. Just like when they buy a book, they are serving. They're giving their hard-earned money, which actually all belongs to Krishna, but they get the credit for giving it back to Krishna. They've done service, and that service of paying for the book helps them to understand the book better. Yes. Let's see if anyone else knows. Yes?
Regarding to Friday classes, one of the Matajis was shy to ask a question. And the question was, how can I distinguish the friendship that I have with a devotee, my feeling toward the feelings that I have with the devotees as a friend and the non-devotees friend. So I can understand which feeling is that right as a feeling of going to the devotee's friend or a non-devotee friend.
Feeling by whom?
Like the spiritual feeling, that like if they had to gather with the spiritual people, like the devotees and stuff, they're getting into the spirituality, or the non-devotee, like a material friend. So she was confused to which one is that feeling is better, because I feel happy in both sides.
In the beginning, you can be like that. You don't know how to discriminate. Sometimes our devotees get very fanatical in the beginning. I cannot talk to anyone who's a non-devotee. I cannot even see their faces. Sometimes our devotees are a bit too fanatical like that. But sometimes also our devotees are not showing enough discrimination. Just loosely associating with everyone without being mindful of contamination. So bhakti requires intelligence, and the intelligence of bhakti is based upon knowledge. This is why we stress, read the books, study the books. Otherwise you'll be bewildered. And the more you associate with non-devotees, you start to lose the ability to discriminate between what is material and what is spiritual. That's one of the first symptoms you notice. You start thinking, everyone is spiritual in their own way. You get kind of new agey. Everything I'm doing is spiritual. My money making is spiritual. My partner is spiritual. You lose the ability, the razor's edge of discrimination is lost. So while being respectful and compassionate to all living entities, you have to discriminate. Okay? Anyone else who hasn't asked a question? Yes?
Maharaj, thank you for your wonderful class. So Earth is like providing all the necessities for all the living beings. So still some people, they are investing billions of dollars for like outer space or other planets, like because of their lack of knowledge or what?
They want to go exploit other planets. They've already burned Earth out. One famous scientist said that unless humanity goes to another planet, it's not going to be able to exist because it has exploited and emptied out all the resources. So what do you think will happen if human beings in their present consciousness go to another planet, if they are able? If they do it, what do you think will happen? They'll trash that one out too. Because the consciousness is the same. They're bringing the same toxic consciousness wherever they go. But the point of this chapter is the earth can provide for all living entities. if human beings would live properly. All types of living entities, even yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts, and witches. They get their flesh, they get their blood. So what to speak of civilized human beings? So this is why the Earth planet was pleading with Prithu Maharaj, don't kill me, and understand why I hid the resources, why I withheld the resources, because human beings are living according to their own concoctions, and I'm not supporting that. It's like if you have a very strict parent. Most parents these days aren't very strict, but 50 years ago, parents were very strict. Not only in India, but even in the Western world. If you want to live like that, if you want to do the things you're doing, you're 15 years old, not in this house. There were firm house rules. What do they say? What do parents say now? Or parent? What is said now? Just be happy in your own way. Your father, your mother, and I, we're just happy if you find your own way of happiness. So the earth is also saying like that. You're going to live like that? You're going to break the rules? I'm not supporting you. I know. Growing up in New York City, there were so many parents, very strict, who would tell their children that. You want to do naughty things, wrong things? Not in this house. Go live on your own. Which is tough in the USA because there's no dole there. So if you're out of your parents' house, you're on the street. You can't go to the government and ask for social support money. So the earth is telling Prithu, this is what I'm doing. I'm not supporting these creatures. They're out of it. Yes.
What you were mentioning about happy cows giving practically unlimited milk.
Unlimited meaning, in the material world there's a limit, but it's far beyond what cows are giving who are raised for slaughter. In the spiritual world, the cows give unlimited milk, the Sarabi cows.
Yeah, but my point is, but nowadays generally the cows they are like genetically bred in a way that they give like perhaps 30 liters a day or something. And so if you have devotees been able to demonstrate that happy cows can also, normal cows give more milk? Because they will say,
Yes, I know at Gita Nagari, the cows give milk much longer than usual, than cows in surrounding farms that are going to be slaughtered. The cows know we're not going to be slaughtered, or we are going to be slaughtered. They know that. So I've seen it factually demonstrated. By genetic modification and all kinds of artificial means, the cows can give a lot of milk for a short time, then they stop. But our cows can give milk far beyond the normal date for which a cow is supposed to stop giving milk. In other words, the cow is not being impregnated, but still the cow, without a calf, is still giving milk out of affection. Anyone else who hasn't asked a question? So remember the verse from the first canto of Bhagavatam. Prabhupada would chant this verse all the time as supportive evidence. Kamam vavarsha parjanya sarva kama tugamai. Sarva kama. All the milk you would need and more. So much milk that the ground would be muddy with milk, earth mixed with milk, during the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, because of his expertise and spiritual level of bhakti. The earth would reciprocate, give everything to such a ruler who's leading his people in this way. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Devamrita Swami Maharaj ki
Hare Krishna.